But I think the bigger story in a lot of these games is that we got to see a little bit of Bismack Biyombo and Charles Bassey before he got hurt. And we were finally able to see what maybe this backup rotation looks like with a center next to it. But what are kind of your thoughts on Bismack and Charles just from what you've seen from the box score?
I can't lie, I didn't get to watch much, Bassey minutes. I did see some highlights, and I did see some live play from Bismack Biyombo, and he's not obviously, he's not Hall of Fame Dwight Howard, he's not Hakeem
Right.
Olajuwon, but he gets rebounds, he gets advantageous baskets underneath the rim, and he is a big body, that can play physically against some of these opposing centers, and that's exactly what we wanted. He's also a fantastic screener at a um, he's a lot better at just like I think oftentimes we forget to like analyze just a player's IQ,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
experience in the league. And he clearly has high level basketball IQ in the sense that he was playmaking for others and getting tip backs into other players' hands that were creating opportunities either in the fast break or in the half court, mostly from dribble handoffs. But I've been very pleased with his play. I didn't get to watch a lot of Charles Bassey, like I said, but just
Mm.
from looking at the box score prior to his injury, again, pretty much the same thing that we've always seen from Charles Bassey. He could just never get on the court, and then of course, once again, right on cue, big fella gets injured again. So
Yes. What I will say, honestly, I think my biggest takeaway, Ethan, from Bismack Biyombo and Charles Bassey, from what we got to see from them, is not just that Bismack Biyombo was able to just provide a center in the starting lineup and do all of the things that you just mentioned. And even though it was an ugly loss last night, had 10 and 10 with 4 blocks, 2 steals as well.
mhm.
That's, essentially him at his best there. And even the first game, as much as it wasn't anything crazy and you only see 3 rebounds there, still 4 for 4 with 8 points, was a space eater. And, he's tipping balls, and him just fighting for rebounds in the paint, being that body, makes it easier for other guys to get boards. So definitely you could see his impact as much as he's just a 10-day guy. And like you said, it's not like, a Hall of Fame, type of guy. It's just a rotation Bismack Biyombo, but still it's something that this Spurs team desperately needed.
Mm.
So I'm happy with what I've seen from him so far. But like I said, I think the biggest point for me is that Jeremy Sohan, in the minutes that I got to see him next to Charles Bassey off the bench, it just makes his life a lot easier. And
All
even
right.
though we only really got to see that in the Detroit game, which was a loss, still, and he did play a little bit in the New Orleans game before he got hurt. Um, if you watched those bench minutes and you just looked at the front court specifically, you could see that Jeremy was just able to play his game more. He was able to bring the ball up the floor more. It was actually easier for him to get rebounds because he's not the only one. While Charles is boxing somebody out, he can go get it instead of just getting 1v3, by the entire front court of the other team whenever we weren't playing a backup center. So anyways, I still got Bismack up on the screen here. So I'm going to try to go to Charles. But that's kind of the next thing that I wanted to talk about, Ethan, whenever it comes to him. We've really tried to give him the benefit of the doubt, but every time he plays, man, unfortunately, it just seems like there's some sort of knick-knack injury that happens after a certain amount of reps.
Yeah, I think I'm about ready to be out on Charles Bassey, Jude. How long's he been with the Spurs? Only like 2.5 years, pretty much.
Since 2022, I believe.
Okay, so this will be his third year with the Spurs, and he's been injured every single year.
Mm-hmm.
What made me really think he had a future was we gave him a guaranteed deal, right? Didn't we give him like a 3-year contract or something like that? Like it wasn't like a one and done.
Yeah, we gave him the Julian contract, which is like the second 2 years were team options. So
I
it was a
see.
4-year deal, but the last 2 years both had team options.
Kind of a prove yourself deal, right? And
Yep.
he has shown flashes of being a real solid, just roll to the rim, get rebounds, shot blocking center, right? Just stereotypical. That's all he's gonna be. And he did show flashes of being a really good version of that. But if he can't play, if he can't be on the court,
Yeah.
then it sounds disrespectful, but we can find his skill set elsewhere that is more available.
I don't, again, we don't mean this in a disrespectful way, Ethan, but
Yeah,
I've jokingly called him Nigerian Eubanks because of the similarities in their play style, and that's the point. Eubanks is on the floor more than he is, and
it's
you
true.
can see it here. I mean, we got his game log up here. You've got a big gap here. Well, I guess that's actually not that big of a gap, but you've got a big gap in the middle of February. There's a gap. Well, I guess actually, I think he just didn't play in
Yeah, he
between this
didn't
point.
play a.
But y'all know what I'm saying. Y'all know Charles had some injuries throughout the season. And like I said, when we started really like trying to give him some rotation minutes, you see the 27 in the Miami game. He plays 7 minutes the next game, and look what happens. And that's kind of what happened here. He gets back against Detroit, and even though 11 isn't 30 minutes, he gets full rotation minutes in a game. And then the next game plays a little bit and then re-injures it. And it was left knee soreness. That was the other thing I didn't even mention, Ethan. It's the same knee. That's
Mhm.
like Charles, we love you. We love your play style. It's just unfortunately this has been something that's been going on in his career throughout it.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the 2025 free agency pool, Jude, and his name is in here, and guys making around the same amount of money as him that would be available: Jericho Sims, Alex Len,
Right.
Jackson Hayes,
Mo Bamba's still out there.
Mobamba, Thomas Bryant, who's kind of been on a downturn, but these are just guys in a similar mold. They can give us similar things. I'm not saying they're game changing, but they'd be available, and that's kind of all you can ask for at this point from your second or third string center.
Yes, yes. Completely agree. Obviously, the Spurs are going to address this need in the draft as well, but because we only have Victor and like Bismack's on a 10-day contract, so who knows if he comes back next season,
Yep.
we theoretically have two open roster spots with Victor at center. So, um, yeah, we don't just need the future, but we also need somebody who could come in and play next season, like you were mentioning.
Let's bring in my guy Steven Adams.
I would actually love that.
I would love that too.
That would be sad if he didn't get to coach with. Well, I mean, I would love it, but I'm thinking about the pop comments now, like the famous Steven Adams, where he didn't he smell his hair or whatever.
I don't remember. That's
You got to look up this interview. I'm pretty sure like Steven Adams. This is like when he's on the Thunder, like prime Thunder,
Mhm.
and he's just like, yeah, Pop's hair. He's like, I love his hair or something. It's a pretty funny interview, but anyways, he had a connection with Pop, so it'd be cool to see him
Mm,
in a Spurs jersey, as much as it would be probably after Pop's absence. But
right.
that is kind of the front court conversation here, Ethan. So for the rest of the season, that's the other thing I was going to get to. So Bassey's hurt. We did play some Mamu Jeremy front court minutes last night. Um, so I'd expect that to be the case, but maybe we sign another 10-day because if Bassey's hurt and he's out, we may have a hardship, but that's not for sure either because if he's not shut down for the season, like I don't know if we're eligible for a hardship. Um, But I guess what I'll say there is if we don't sign another hardship 10-day contract big that we can at least play Mamu and Jeremy, because as much as that's still not that great, Ethan, Mamu and Jeremy is better than just Jeremy or just Mamu. That's my takeaway from what I saw last night. And last night was a terrible game for the Spurs, but I still could take that away.
Yeah, I would agree. If you're gonna play just Jeremy at center, then you have to play Mamu at the four. Otherwise, who you playing at the four? I guess KJ, and he's 5 inches shorter
Yeah.
than Mamu. So at the very least, we got to have two guys out there that are roughly 6'9", 6'10", that can at least attempt to play big. Because I would hate to shove poor Keldon at the four. Because then who's playing the backup three? I guess Julian, who's 6'9", but he's a
Then
lean
we're
guy.
then we're
So,
getting into Malachi Blake Wesley minutes territory.
but at the same time, you know
Well, I
what?
guess
We're
I
trying
guess
we're trying to lose. So
it's a good point there, Ethan.
I mean, if we are trying to lose and we want to get Cooper Flag or somebody like that, then maybe we do play just Jeremy at the center with Keldon at the four, and let Blake and Malachi try and prove themselves at that point next to Stefan or whoever else.
I don't want to say this, Ethan, but look at the screen right now. Do you see all the you see the W's and L's?
Yeah,
I, w- I wish we could play my man Charles.
Oh yeah, no, true. He seems to be a
God bless
common thread.
God bless him. But I just looked up and I see the one win. And I'm like, speaking of tanking. Anyways, M Easy says Derek Queen from Maryland is a good option. Connor McLeod also says that I hope we draft a big this time. I think all of us really want that to be the case.
Yes.
And we have 2 lottery picks, so just one of them, at least one of them.
Please, for the love of God.